Hello everyone, this is part 6 of What If Naruto Got His Wish, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto fought to keep himself from blowing up. This information wasn't just a shock, as Kakashi had told him it would be. It was the crack of a lightning blast aimed straight into a tree that had been soaked in oil. The tree was Naruto's strong, tall, solid spirit. The flammable oil was Sasuke's betrayal, the broken promise to Sakura to bring him back, the QB Fox spirit who taunted him in his dreams, pointing out that he was too weak to redeem himself, much less his friend. In short, it was all things that brought Naruto pain. Kakashi's words ignited it, setting both it and the tree of his spirits aflame. The great branches crackled with hopeful flame. It hurt a little to think about it all again, but the pain lost out to the other thing the flames brought with them. There was hope, now. Even though he might perish in the effort, Naruto intended to act upon this chance to burn away the pain forever. Naruto, Kakashi said, it's difficult, I know, but you have to keep this quiet, you have to control yourself. We know only that Sasuke is in Konoha and is responsible for your doppelganger's attack, and even this information was hard to come by, those copies that were made of you have strong will, apparently. We don't know his exact hiding location, what he wants, or if he is even acting of his own free will. There is no way to know if his intentions are hostile or, if they are, just how much threat he poses after 3 years. We can't afford to act too hastily. He heard his sensei's words and obeyed them, but Naruto couldn't stop himself from shaking with excitement and determination. He swallowed hard, forcing down the voice which longed to cry out to his lost friend. Kakashi was right, of course. The villagers had not forgotten how the last son of their most cherished shinobi clan had turned to the blackest of all hearts to grant him power. To run around shouting that he was back would incite bedlam. Naruto started, pausing to get his cracking voice under his thumb again, have they checked the Uchiha compound? Kakashi breathed again, relieved that his former student had been able to restrain himself. Several Anbu are there already, he said, but they haven't reported any sightings. If Sasuke's base is there, then it is very well hidden. Naruto's face fell. He'd been hoping that someone would at least find a lead there. He was about to probe Kakashi further when his old teacher spoke again. Naruto, he said, we cannot be certain, but there is a possibility that you and Sakura, not to mention myself, could be in great danger. Out of fear of this danger, and the danger posed by the increase in Akatsuki activity, Tsunade-sama cannot send you on any missions outside of the village, and she's even had a team of Anbu assigned to watch you from the shadows. She's doing everything she can to fortify the village and you against the coming O. But if I know you, Naruto, then you're not going to sit around waiting for trouble to come to you. So I'm giving you an unofficial mission, Naruto. Naruto ed his ear, interested in what his master had in mind. He waited while Kakashi checked over his shoulder again before continuing. Go about your business as usual, Naruto, practice your heart out, eat ramen, make small talk with your friends, and have a little fun. Put on a show for the villagers to cover up your less-known activities, sticking your nose everywhere that smells fishy, observing suspicious activity, reading through newspapers and listening to whatever conversations you have to find whatever hints you can. Sasuke is planning something. Whatever information we can get will help us. I'll be checking up on you every now and then, to see if you've found anything. Naruto nodded. This was something he was easily capable of. Whatever Sasuke was doing, he'd sniff it out. Okay, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi nodded in return, and turned to hobble off. Over his shoulder, he added, if you find him, Naruto, don't try to take him yourself. Come to me first. We, you, Sakura, and I, should do this together. With that, he left, his crutches helping him slowly along to where shelter and rest awaited him. Naruto went back to where he'd left Hinata. Almost immediately, he could tell that something was wrong. Something in her lavender-tinted eyes was uncertain, fearful. She held herself like someone who had just witnessed the end of a precious friend or family member. Hinata, he asked, his voice layered with concern, what's wrong? Hinata's eyes grew more fearful for a moment, but then she shook her head. No, she said, it's nothing. Naruto-kun, we should move on. My team is waiting for us in the forest. Naruto didn't buy it. Something was up, that he knew for certain, he'd seen it in her eyes. It probably wasn't any of his business, something that had to do with her family, perhaps, or an appointment of some sort that she'd just remembered and realized she'd missed. Yet he considered Hinata one of his better friends, he'd have to ask her about it again later. For now, though, he shoved it to the back of his brain. There was training to be done. He gestured to the short blue-haired girl. Lead the way, Hinata. Ooh. Keisuke parted from Haruka at the village gates in a very good mood. Sakura had been right. Haruka was willing to help him, had even asked him to help her do it. She just had to find some safe lodging away from the Hyuga compound, and she would be set to help bring the Byakugan's barbaric protection system down around the Hyuga's ears. Things were looking up and, except for a sore groin and some slightly unsettled guts, Keisuke felt more than ready to face his next challenge. Smiling and walking with a spring in his step despite his fading pain, he hastened to Training Area 17 with triumph in his mind's eye. As it turned out, Training Area 17 was a rectangular enclosure about 6 miles in length and 4 miles wide. At one end was a rocky cliff face that stretched easily 700 feet high. At the other end was a tall gate, the only way in or out of the enclosure other than through the air. Within the enclosure was a swamp, complete with mossy trees that had vines drooping from them, murky water that was waist deep at its shallowest and well over a man's head at its deepest, and a spooky darkness that even Keisuke, in his blindness, could perceive. And standing before the gate. Hyuga Neji, said the young man, holding out his hand. We've met before. Yes, at the homecoming, Keisuke responded, taking it. Both men regarded each other for a moment, respectful appreciation on their faces. Then they got down to business. Keisuke presented his scroll of orders from the Hokage, which Neji skimmed quickly through, then tucked away. I'll be your examiner while you take this test, a Junin equivalence test, within the walls Training Area 17, Neji said. It is a fast test with simple goals. You will enter the swamp, where you must locate a civilian target. In this case, it is a ninja masquerading as a commoner for the purpose of the exercise, and to escort him safely back to this gate. Keisuke nodded, showing that he understood. Neji was right. In this small enclosure, finding the target shouldn't take a long time, so it was certain to end quickly. Naturally, this is not just a case of some old lady who's lost her way, it is a high-priority target wanted by an enemy village, who has hired its own ninjas, also played by our helpful comrades, of course, to find him and kill him on sight. Their encampment is at the other end of the swamp. Your first objective, therefore, is to find the target before they do. I would expect as much, Keisuke thought. So what's the trick? Once you have found him, you will need to lead him back through the swamp, which is full of natural dangers as much as it is full of enemies, back here. Though in reality he is a fully trained shinobi, he will use no ninjutsu here, he is playing the part of an ordinary person, and will rely completely upon you for guidance and protection against all hazards. Your enemies, as well as your environment, will strike to K. If at any time you fail to stop a death blow and our shinobi actor has to break character to save himself, you will fail your exam on the spot. He makes it sound more like a performance than a test of skill, Keisuke mused. Damned Hyuga, so concerned over perfection, everything has to look good to them. He thought it jokingly, of course. He knew from Naruto that this young man was worth respecting since he had beaten some sense into him, and Keisuke was personally beginning to like him. He possessed a certain elegance that, when not coupled with the arrogance and intolerance that cursed many of his fellows, made him quite charming. Also, Neji continued, the target will begin this exercise in perfect health. You will begin with 100 points. When you have returned to the starting point, the target's health will be assessed. At that time, points will be deducted from your score for injuries, illness, infection, etc. You will also lose points for time spent in the swamp after 1 hour. Every 10 minutes after that will deduct 1 point from your score. There is one way to add to your score: steal from the enemy encampment their map of the swamp, which not only marks routes of safer passage through the wetlands, but also notes the location of secret caches of supplies and contraband kept hidden there by the enemy village. Return this map to me at the end of the examination, and I will add 10 points to your score. Keisuke read in Neji's aura that he was reaching the end of his explanation. He tensed in anticipation, preparing for the imminent trial. If, when all calculations and changes are applied, your score exceeds 60 points, then you will pass the test and register as a Junin-level shinobi of the village hidden in the leaves. Are your instructions clear? They are, Examiner, Keisuke said. Neji grinned. From a person who spent 2 years with the most surprising ninja in our village, I expect great things, Keisuke-san. Good luck. At Neji's signal, the gate opened. Keisuke rushed forward, and the test began. Ooh. Inuzuka Kiba sat grumbling beneath a tree with his teammate, observing the mock battle taking place. Normally, old Team 8's practice was about more than single combat. This time, however, they were hosting a friend that they hadn't seen for a long time. Naruto wanted to do one-on-one matches to see how everyone had progressed in comparison to each other, and Kiba, along with his comrades, had sportingly agreed. Naruto had looked to Kiba then, knowing that the wild man would be itching to try to beat the technique that had so easily stopped him earlier. Kiba had wanted to fight Naruto in his Tales of Light, and still planned to, but at the moment he had no idea how he was supposed to fight it, and while Naruto might be willing to charge headlong at any foe regardless of power differences, Kiba chose his battles according to the law of beasts. You just don't fight something that you can't even touch until either your opponent became vulnerable or you have acquired the means to touch it. Therefore, he had grumbled a reluctant excuse and withdrawn to the shade of the tree, hoping that by watching Naruto's fight he would learn how to get around those 9 extra limbs. Without Kiba to fight, Naruto's gaze had turned to Hinata. He expressed particular interest in seeing how far Kiba's shy teammate had come. The shy one in question had promptly turned an interesting color and started mumbling something too quiet to be audible. That fight would have been awkward, Kiba thought, somewhat amused at the prospect. It would have given him something to tease Hinata about later, anyway. In the end, it had been Shino to come to the rescue. Though Naruto expressed slight disappointment at being stuck fighting his least favorite member of Team 8, he agreed. Nobody else seemed quite ready to go at the moment. Naruto had little time to remain disappointed, however. The battle quickly became very, very interesting, and Kiba found himself watching it very attentively. Naruto started off in predictable fashion, nothing they hadn't seen before. He charged the bug user directly from the front, fist at the ready. Shino moved to meet him, the destruction bugs that called him master and home swarming around them both. The bugs bit and tore at the blonde wherever they could gain a hold. Naruto seemed to be relying on nothing more than his own speed to fend them off, and it didn't seem to be all that effective. This was Shino's bread and butter, distract the opponent with basic taijutsu as the bugs slowly eat away at their bi and their chakra, wearing them down. Kiba knew that Naruto wouldn't stand long for this. Sure enough, after a few exchanges, the blonde genin brought forth his Tales of Light to try to sweep the bugs away. At first glance, this seemed to work better than plain taijutsu and speed. Most of the destruction bugs were blown away from his main body. But after only a short time, it began to fail, and Kiba saw that the technique had a weakness against this opponent. Shino's bugs fed upon chakra. Normally, the best place for them to get it was from Shino, their master, in return for their unquestioning service. But here, Naruto's external chakra coils gave them a new, rich source of raw chakra to harvest, and they did so eagerly. With their chakra being consumed, the Tales of Light lost their force, and Shino called forth additional bugs from his body to replace the ones that were busy with their meal. Once again, Naruto fell prey to their and Shino began to get the upper hand. Kiba watched all this with disappointment. He had found the weakness of Naruto's new power, sure, but unless he could teach Akamaru to eat chakra rather than meat and table scraps, it didn't help him out any. It looked as though he'd be going back to the drawing board. Losing interest in the fight, for the moment, he glanced over at Hinata. The girl was watching the fight, but it looked as though she was having difficulty deciding which combatant to support. As Kiba kept looking, it seemed to him that she gave up on openly supporting either one of them and chose to watch in silence, as he did. At any rate, she appeared to have less trouble with distraction than Kiba did. Her eyes remained glued to the pair, well, to one of the two, anyway, thought Kiba, in mute appraisal. Finally, Naruto's growl of frustration made Kiba turn his head. He seemed about to change his tactics again. What will you do now, Naruto? Geez, You're as annoying on the battlefield as you are around the village, Naruto said. Then a grin spread to his face, the wry one that showed Kiba that things might be about to get interesting again. But I'll get around those defenses of yours, continued the blonde, you'll see. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Ooh. The swamp proved to be a challenge to navigate, despite Keisuke's generally good pathfinding capabilities. Though he could avoid trudging through the muddy water by hopping swiftly through the gnarled trees, the numerous drooping vines and spindly branches impeded his ghostly arm's reach, making it hard to see ahead of him. Already, he had smacked himself into a few branches, and he was beginning to think that maybe the water might have been more comfortable. Not his ideal environment, but then, when was a Junin ever allowed to decide where his target got lost? Eventually, he had the sense to create a few Kage Bunshins to scout the path ahead of him, and he created extras to search off to his sides while he was at it. He had not yet encountered any enemies, but this didn't surprise him, they were after the target, not him. Most likely they would only attack him once he got in their way. All in all, it was a rocky road so far, but nothing had really blocked it. Although, once I find the objective, that ought to change quite quickly. 10 minutes into the search, one of his clones located the enemy encampment. Keisuke made a mental note of where it was. If he had time after finding the target, he would come back for the map, but he could not afford hesitation now. There were only 2 guards within the camp, which meant that the rest had to be out in the swamp, searching for their objective. The location fixed firmly in his thoughts, Keisuke continued forth. 5 more minutes passed, and then he heard a cry of panic off his right flank. He turned quickly, and a split second later, his forward Bunshins called to him, having found what they were looking for. Grinning at his first small victory, Keisuke hastened to the target, coming with feeler range in seconds. Quickly, he searched around for what had made the target cry out, but he could locate no enemies. Wondering what could be the problem, Keisuke turned to face the target. Sir, are you Al? Oh, thank goodness you've arrived, said the target, interrupting him. The voice was deep and loud and obviously belonged to a male, but Keisuke noted that its owner was putting in a great deal of obvious effort to make it sound helpless. The overall effect it had on Keisuke was to give him the impression that his mock target was a hopelessly poor actor who was doing his best to convince the blind man that he was not. Ahem. What seems to be the true? You've got to help me. The target cried, interrupting him again, I've been trying to escape from these terrible, evil shinobi. Tell me something I don't already know, thought Keisuke. Already he disliked this man. And I thought I'd gotten away clean, but then the most horrible thing happened. The man's voice was much too loud. Keisuke worried that if he was allowed to keep speaking, the enemy would find them much more quickly than he would like. Get to the point already. Keisuke thought. His words were more polite. And what is the problem now, sir? It's awful. I've been caught in quicksand. A moment passed in which Keisuke wondered just what kind of idiot they'd given him for his test objective. Not only was the man an abysmal actor, but he could not seem to comprehend that lowering his voice would be beneficial to his survival and, on top of that, he was now planted in mud that was perhaps only a foot deep by measure of Keisuke's feelers, and he was calling it quicksand, while calmly, if loudly, talking about how awful and terrible it was. Is he this bad all the time, or is he purposefully doing this to get on my nerves and make things difficult? Deciding to act upon the former assumption, he didn't even want to think that someone so utterly intolerable could exist. He sighed and grabbed the man by his waist, pulling him from the mud easily. Oh, thank you, cried the target with over-exaggerated groard. I thought I would have been sucked under for sure. Might guy, am eternally in your debt. Keisuke could only stand before this man and gape in awe at his inhumanely bad acting. This will be one hell of an examination. Ooh. The forest seemed much more crowded suddenly as Naruto's Bunshins exploded into being around him. The blonde looked on his bug user opponent confidently. Let Shino have his army of bugs, he commanded his own battalion. That annoying hooded freak might have been able to neutralize one of him, but could he deal with 20 at the same time? Naruto thought not, and renewed his attack with a great cry of challenge. All 19 Bunshins and the true Naruto raged towards their target, intent on bodily thrashing him. Shino, not having been made a Chunin for no reason, was prepared. Offering up his chakra to his bugs, he rose his arms and gave his orders. Destruction bugs swarmed from his sleeves. Mushi Cabe no Jutsu. Bug wall technique. The bugs swarmed protectively around Shino at hurricane wind speed. Naruto had seen this technique in action before, and it had proven quite effective on the small bees that had later been able to suicide bomb it to oblivion. 20 future Hokages, Naruto assessed, should not be stopped or even deflected easily by a jutsu that could only butcher other insects, and then only so long as those insects didn't carry explosives. This was a miscalculation on Naruto's part. Shino's bugs had become better as he had become better at controlling them, and they raged like a twister, repelling some of the clones and tearing others apart, dispersing them. The end result was an untouched Shino, 6 defeated clones, 13 clones still usable, and one surprised real Naruto, who retreated into a bush to hide. He's just as annoying as before, he thought, but he's definitely a better fighter than I remember. Then again, I never really fought against him before. Damn it, I underestimated him. He couldn't think much more, as he had to dodge the explosion from the tag that had arrived at his bush via Kunai Airlines. Sailing out of the bush and landing hard on his feet, Naruto attempted to mingle with his bunchans, but found himself assailed by shuriken and insects directly. What the hell? He said, narrowly outmaneuvering the O. He evaded the long-range attacks and got within melee range again, but the bugs and weapons ignored his clones and dogged his every step. He kept trying to swat the bugs away with his tails of light, and the bugs kept eating the chakra right away from them. Naruto attempted to Shino in the arm, but the bug user's taijutsu had also improved, and their weapons clashed with flying sparks. Shino regarded Naruto impassively from underneath his hood, in that way that ticked Naruto off to no end. I anticipated your use of cage bunchan, he explained coolly, and planted a female bug on the real you at the beginning of the match. Everywhere your true body goes is known to me, and as you can see, I am more than capable of repelling a full bunchan taijutsu assault. Team. Naruto growled to himself. He began to see that he was losing this fight, not because Shino was too powerful, but because his techniques were not suited to fight these destruction bugs. He could not hide from them, nor could he use his tails to fight them without wasting huge amounts of chakra. Of course, Naruto could always call upon the enormous reserves of chakra provided by his demon tenant, but he wanted to avoid that if possible. Using it made him feel as though his own power was insufficient, and Kyuubi seemed to like reminding him of that. So how could he? Then the idea came to him. He turned it over in his head for a split second, then motioned to 2 of his bunchans, not enough to prompt another bug wall, but enough to serve his purposes, and renewed his attack. This was a long shot, that was for certain. If it worked, it might just assure his victory. If not, then he was back at square one. Silently, he used 2 of his free ghostly arms to communicate the plan via synchronization to his bunchans. After a few more exchanges, one of the clones managed to grab a hold of Shino's left arm. Seeing his chance, the second one grabbed his right. Naruto grit his teeth. It was now or never, they wouldn't be able to hold him long. He gave the silent signal. At once, both clones pumped an enormous amount of energy into their tails of light, and the clones that were standing watch did the same for good measure. Whether Shino was afraid of the sudden blinding glow that was generated and was desperately trying to suppress it, or the bugs left his control in favor of devouring the generous meal, Naruto didn't know. But all of the bugs that he could see stopped attacking Naruto and the bunchans and focused on the bright tails. The bluff had worked. Shino managed to break free of the clone's grip, but it was now too late. Naruto had reached the nearby stream and finished his hand seals already. Suten, Suryuden. Water style, Water Dragon Blast. The giant dragon formed of water surged forth, arcing high into the air and roaring at the prospect of fresh prey. Its way blocked by the 2 Naruto clones that were still attacking him, the target had no chance of escaping. With a heavy splash, he fell to the dragon's maw. When the water had settled to a large puddle, however, there was nothing there but a mass of bugs, scrambling to shake the water from their wings and get airborne again. Shino had replaced himself with a bug clone at the last moment. Naruto there bewildered, staring into the trees for some sign of the real Shino. He reappeared rather quickly, leaping from a nearby bush and attacking with his destruction bugs from behind. Even Shino's stealth, apparently, had gotten better. Beneath the O of bugs, the blonde genin thrashed, wreathed, screamed. Shino-kun. Shino. The bug user's teammates cried out, pleading with him to stop. He was letting his insects work too long upon his victim. Serious pain was being inflicted. Shino had let them carry on, thinking that perhaps it might be a buncheon. His female tracking bug had left its perch to eat the plentiful chakra that the blonde had so generously provided at what was surely some cost to himself. Greater geniuses than he had left themselves exposed to Naruto when they thought they had won, only to be shown a new definition of humility for their mercy. Yet the damage the bugs had inflicted was near the limit of what a human being could survive, and the body had not disappeared into smoke. Surely this had to be the real thing. Satisfied, Shino called off the attack, his bugs returning eagerly to their master to nurse the wounds inflicted by Naruto's swatting tails. Shino himself hurried forward, intending to help Naruto up. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I thought you might be." He stopped. Something beneath his feet, an elegant seal, by the looks of it, had begun to shine blue-white. Before he could move away or even send his bugs back into the air, it triggered, and the snap of cold air solidified the water around his feet, locking him into place. In front of him, the body of Naruto puffed out of existence. "A buncheon." The voice came from all directions, finishing Shino's sentence for him. Looking up, Shino could see 10 more Narutos waiting in the trees, speaking as one. His bugs swarmed once more from his sleeves, some of them coming up to guard him, preparing for a bug wall, another sub-swarm attacking the ice that bound him. The latter group made slow progress. It would take a few seconds for them to weaken it enough so that Shino could break free. The true Naruto, hidden in the trees among his clones, needed less time than that. A few quick hand seals to alter the nature of his chakra, and he was set. Reud Ninpu, Reitsuki Degeki. Ghostly Arms Secret Art, Lightning Earth Strike. Naruto brought one of his ghostly arms, one that he had not been using for his Tomoshibi no Kyubi technique, into contact with Shino's chest, and forced the altered chakra through it with the speed of a bolt of lightning. It looked similar to a bolt of lightning, as well, but this lightning was not electric. It was a wave of chakra that had the physical properties of earth and soil and crushed rock. Forcing such a large amount of chakra through the thin strand of his arm all at once and at that speed wasn't easy on the arm. In fact, it completely disintegrated it. Yet the attack did what it was supposed to do. Shino was knocked free of the bug-weakened ice shackles, flying into the brush. Very little surprised Aberrane Shino. But seeing the Naruto battalion descending from the trees and charging him with all tails blazing was not how he had expected to end the battle. The clones knocked aside his bugs, which were still valiantly trying to block their way. Then, 10 feet away, they parted to reveal the real Naruto, rushing at him with his Rasengan in his hand. There was no way that Shino could disentangle himself in time. He had lost. As the swirling ball of raw chakra stopped inches from his face and dissipated, Shino's thought was, apparently, near to the limit that a human being can survive is not sufficient to defeat Uzumaki Naruto. He allowed the blonde to help him out of the brush and called back his bugs. The stronger shinobi had won this day. Now taking his seat to watch the practice match between Kiba and Hinata, he wondered whether or not the strongest heart would prevail today as well. Maito Guy was extremely pleased with himself. When he had been told that Neji had needed a capable Junin to play the part of a helpless civilian and be ready to defend oneself against the Chunin attackers should the examinee fail, he had volunteered out of affection for his former pupil. For surely, he thought, my wonderful ex-student must have only the best to be truly effective. Nobody else can so dynamically play the part of a defenseless person and be on guard against Lee and Tenten at the same time. For once, Neji had had to agree that his old sensei's dynamic acting skills were very well suited to the job. His tendency to be loudmouthed would give his location away to Tenten and Lee, whom Neji had drafted to be among the enemies, and his tendency to give too much effort to his task would see him falling into numerous traps, both real and imagined, thus slowing the examinee down considerably. But Guy, of course, would have refused to hear this logic if it had been shouted into his ear, so he went on happily believing that he had been chosen because he was dynamically and youthfully cool, most assuredly the ideal candidate, my student loves me, etc., etc., ad nauseum. Thus far, he had been stuck in quicksand, half dragged and half carried across what his inner civilian was certain was tar. Keisuke had given up trying to explain that it was merely very dark mud after 5 wasted minutes. Attacked by his own students whom he had to be violently restrained from running up to and begging for mercy in his desire to dynamically fill his role. Rescued from a shuriken flinging trap mechanism, actually real. Dropped from Keisuke's arms when an enemy kunai hit the blind man in the shoulder into a deep pool where he had dynamically pretended not to be able to swim. Gotten himself wrapped up in bandages while he was trying to patch up Keisuke's shoulder and dynamically acting as though he were very bad at it, nearly swallowed by a crocodile while waiting for Keisuke to return from the enemy camp with the map, and very nearly beaten up by the frustrated examinee when he been caught, in dynamically feigned stupidity, trying to clean an alligator tooth wound using the map as a washcloth. Now, Keisuke was leading him along a shallow, supposedly safe route through the swamp back to the gate, bound up in metal wire, to keep you from misplacing your hands, as the examinee had told him. They had just left behind the unconscious Rock Lee, whom Guy had wept over loudly, praising the bravery and skill of the enemy until Keisuke had pulled him off with him. They were very near the blind man's goal. Within moments, the gate was in sight. At last, breathed Keisuke raggedly, feeling the metal of the latch mechanism with his arms. He started walking forward at an increased pace, eager to be finished with the long and exhausting day. However, 5 feet from the gate, he felt a newcomer enter their midst, and before he could react, he was under attack. Hack Kusho. 8 Trigoms Wind Palm. Keisuke felt a gust of chakra blow him off of his feet. The feeling was familiar, as was the name of the technique, like being blown back by Haruka's Kaiten, only it's a direct shot, and an offensive technique rather than an area effect, defensive one. With Keisuke out of the way, the attacker sped straight at Guy. "Ah, my former student," he said praisingly, "how wonderfully you've developed." If anyone present found it out of character to be saying this as the student was aiming a K-blow at his heart not 12 feet away, they gave no indication. Neji's advance was put off momentarily by a flight of shuriken that whizzed through the air where he would have been a split second later had he kept going. He leaped back a short distance, waiting to see if any more were on their way. There weren't, but Keisuke only needed those that he'd already thrown. Hitoshiazu Shinto no Jutsu. The trunk of the tree where the shuriken had embedded themselves was ripped to shreds as the chakra stored within them detonated. The tree, which was rather large considering that few trees seemed to live very long in this swamp, fell into what had been Neji's path. Byakugan. Neji looked straight through the tree, saw that neither Guy nor Keisuke was behind it. A few moments later, he located them in another tree, where Keisuke was securing Guy to the trunk and a branch with wire. He took his time waiting. He rather wanted to fight Keisuke without his busybody former teacher in the way, and Keisuke took his time at his own risk, for every moment detracted from his score. When Keisuke came down from the tree 20 seconds later, he grinned in anticipation. His Byakugan saw the blind man in his entirety, the lengthy ghostly arms, all 64 of them, waving everywhere, serving him for eyes, the healthy amount of chakra that pulsed through his inner coils, and the smooth and elaborate way in which the system was all connected at the tenketsu, allowing chakra to flow freely between the inner and outer systems. The Rokujuyon Ryu technique was truly a marvel when seen through the eyes of a Hyuga. Now, we will see if this technique of yours is truly the terror that Hiyashi-sama is so concerned about, he said. He saw Keisuke smile and his eyebrows perk up in an amused expression. Interesting, Neji thought, how just his brows can be expressive enough without the eyes below them. So Hiyashi's told you about his fears, eh? Interesting, him confiding so in a branch member, Keisuke replied. I'm his nephew, said Neji. Hiyashi-sama isn't all bad. Recently, he's even softened up a little, he is simply slow to warm up to change. Keisuke seemed to ponder this a little, as though he was surprised to hear it. Softened up, huh? He murmured. Well, I suppose that only makes my dream easier to realize. Neji's own eyebrows arched. Your dream, Keisuke-san. Keisuke's smile returned. I will tell you, he said, after I have won through that gate and taken a rank equal to yours, Neji-san. That rare smile found its way to Neji's lips. He was very much going to enjoy testing this man who called Uzumaki Naruto his little brother. Come. Insatsu Kokuen, Reiku. With his Byakugan, it was easy for Neji to see the 16 ghostly arms snake themselves around their master, but he could not guess the nature of the seal that was being carved. It was a mysterious-looking seal, alien to the Hyuga Junin, written in an archaic language that he had never seen before. When finished, it gave off a faint yellow-white luminescence, but no other change was apparent, even to his superior eyes. The rest of the arms continued to sweep the area around Keisuke, keeping tabs on the surroundings and on Neji. Neji watched him, sitting relaxed in his Juken stance, waiting for the enemy attack. Time was on his side. Keisuke's score would slowly degrade if he remained where he was. He would have to attack at some point, and there was no way that Neji would be surprised. Keisuke seemed to know where he stood in all this. Playing defense, as I expected. I can't say I blame you, it's much to your advantage in this scenario. Well, then, he said, drawing a pair of kunai, I'll be taking the initiative. He charged. Neji immediately went to work with his Hakusho, attempting to blast Keisuke off course, unbalance him so that Neji could make an uncounted offensive. Keisuke apparently was no slouch, though, and he moved with subtle swiftness, dodging no more and wasting no more energy than he needed to. Within moments, he had reached the Hyuga Junin. Wielding his two kunai with surprising proficiency, the blind one hacked at Neji, forcing him to take up his own kunai in defense. Neji recognized this strategy. By forcing him to use a weapon in response to parry the sharp blades that were so skillfully wielded, Keisuke was effectively occupying his hands so that he could not use his Juken without leaving himself open in some way. A number of Neji's opponents had utilized this tactic. Most of them had fallen anyway. Neji leaped across the water and onto the tree that had fallen, and Keisuke followed. The Hyuga Junin, temporarily out of range of the ghostly arm's perception, took his opportunity to concentrate a large amount of his chakra within his left hand. When Keisuke landed upon the log, swinging his blades, Neji parried the nearest with the kunai in his right hand, then swung his enhanced Juken at Keisuke's side. At the last moment, Keisuke's feelers finally caught on, and he moved desperately to evade. The result was a glancing blow. Keisuke grimaced, knowing that it would hurt quite a bit once his nerves registered the damage. Neji suffered more immediate consequences. The seal shining upon Keisuke's skin crackled, the friction caused by Neji's chakra prompting its angry response. The Hyuga jolted backward as electricity sparked into his body. Keisuke took advantage of his openness, planting a kick in his chest. Neji, though hurting, was able to use the momentum of the kick to sail onto a nearby tree branch. He rubbed his hand where the electricity had entered his palm. That isn't the best of feelings, he thought. He knew, now, the purpose of that seal. You must have figured it out now, huh? Keisuke said, my lightning seal isn't normally my preferred technique. It can be more dangerous than the fire or frost seals, it's true. But just as one never knows where a true bolt of lightning will strike, so it is impossible to guess when and where the lightning from my seal will lash out. It's unpredictable, uncontrollable, and therefore unreliable. Neji called back, but against me, and all Hyuga, it's the best one, isn't it? The Juken. The raw chakra that is delivered by our unique taijutsu causes friction on the seal, triggering the lightning. Every Juken hit will return damage to the Hyuga that used it. It is an eye for an eye technique. Very astute, Neji-san, said Keisuke. Naruto was right when he told me you were a genius. Although, he thought, there are ways to manipulate how much lightning is generated. The more direct a hit is, the less friction it will cause and the less electricity will spark. A truly skilled Hyuga will notice this and move accordingly, only taking a Juken shot when they are sure that they will not glance me. Neji pondered his situation. Through his Byakugan, he could see that Keisuke was slowly pouring his chakra into the ghostly arms that made up his seal, as was obviously required to maintain it. If I could stop his chakra flow, he thought, then it will nullify the technique. But will hitting his tenketsu work? His eyes lingered on the tenketsu, where the Reud joined with the inner chakra system. Or, does the Reud block that power of ours? Keisuke leaped up into the tree after him, whirling his kunai in an aggressive, coordinated assault. Neji threw shuriken, forcing him to change course. Keisuke missed the branch, hit the trunk, ran up it to attempt to leap behind Neji. Neji saw this and ran up the trunk after him, drawing his second kunai. They fought vertically there for a time, neither side gaining ground, neither power losing it. Every now and again, sparks would fly threateningly from Keisuke's seal, but no lightning struck. Neji was surprised that the metal of the knives did not conduct electricity between them, but then he noted that the seal did not quite extend to Keisuke's fingers, stopping at the back of the hand. So the danger comes only from the seal, Neji thought, not from the user. When Keisuke left himself a small opening, Neji dropped one kunai and used his fingers to deliver a small jolt of chakra to the right side of his chest, where a small patch of skin was not covered by the seal. It was not enough to really damage Keisuke, but it had the intended effect. The blind man staggered back a little bit, and slackened his grip on his weapons. Neji was in position to try his next idea. Juken Hao, Hak Rokuju Yonsho. Keisuke's eyebrows arched in surprise. He hadn't had this used on him in a long time. 2 strikes. 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. The blows all landed correctly, Neji was certain of that. He'd hit every tenketsu. Some of them had jolted him slightly with a spark of electricity, but the jolt was choked off as the ghostly arm was dislodged from its seal. Keisuke was driven back up the tree, trying desperately and in vain to mount some kind of counteroffensive. When it was finished, the seal was gone. Yet, Keisuke still clung to the tree with the chakra at his feet, though the Rokuju Yonsho was supposed to stop all chakra flow. Neji's eyes widened slightly in amazement. The possessors of the Rokuju Yonryude were completely immune to Hyuga Tenketsu manipulation. Impressive, Keisuke-san, he said. Your power prevents me from stopping your chakra flow. It is indeed a formidable ability against the Hyuga style. You aren't bad, yourself, young man, Keisuke returned. You didn't stop my chakra, it's the truth. But you hit all of the tenketsus accurately, and triggered a troublesome reflexive action. Haruka figured out a while back that pushing on a tenketsu will force the arm to straighten itself, sort of like hitting a human knee joint will trigger the kicking reflex. You effectively broke my seal, Neji-san. The lightning that troubled you is gone. Neji nodded. He'd seen this himself with his Byakugan. Your move, Keisuke-san. Keisuke started to form a new seal, but Neji saw it and launched a new assault, breaking his concentration. Gripping his weapons firmly, Keisuke parried and returned the favor. The two leaped from tree to tree, Keisuke's blades flashing, Neji parrying with one blade and readying himself to juken him with his free hand when Keisuke slipped up. Numerous times, Keisuke attempted to form a new Kokuin seal, but always Neji saw it and stopped it by either attacking too furiously for Keisuke to be able to concentrate or by striking a tenketsu or two, disrupting the formation. Eventually, Neji managed to get a solid hit on the blind man, the juken hitting him squarely in the sternum. Keisuke fell several feet and landed on his back on a branch. So you've come back for me after all, cried a voice behind him. Is the danger gone, great shinobi? It's very uncomfortable here. I've come close to being attacked by several man-eating mosquitoes and eye-gouging gnats, but fortunately, they've seen the powerful youth within me and known that it was not my time. Keisuke rolled his head back to see Guy behind him. Eye-gouging gnats, huh? Yes. Vicious, undynamic little beasts that would have rendered me more blind than you had I not been so youthful. Have you defeated the evil, horrible ninja yet? Groaning, Keisuke climbed to his feet. Neji was waiting for him several branches up, emphasizing once again that he has all the time in the world, while mine only grows shorter. He was within striking range should Keisuke decide to try a new seal, but he obviously was interested in seeing what Keisuke had in mind next. No, Guy, I haven't. That is no surprise, Guy said. The opponent that you face is strong in his youth. He will be impossible to beat unless you match that dynamic youth with your own. How's that possible? Keisuke wondered. The last time I checked, people grew older with time, not younger. He did not say this. He had no desire to have the man go into another impassioned speech as he had the last time he had been questioned. What he said was, I have one technique that I haven't tried on a Hyuga yet. I've been trying to save it for more dire circumstances. You should not hold it back. Guy interrupted. If these are not dire circumstances, you are at a disadvantage before a genius, your career on the line, then what are? Keisuke thought about those words. He did have a point. My own student, Rock Lee, said Guy, forgetting all pretense of being in character, wished to save his trump card for his greatest challenge. Yet he realized that if he did not use it then, there was a great chance that he would never arrive at that challenge. Though he lost his fight, his youthful spirit was a great and moving example to all who watched. A moment passed in which Keisuke finally began to consider the possibility that perhaps Maito Guy was not completely useless after all. You are right, of course, he finally said. If I don't make Junin rank, then I will find my dream more difficult to achieve. If I use my trump card, I will ensure my success at this point, though I won't be able to surprise my opponent later. It's a choice between a challenge now and a challenge later, possibly being stopped here versus knowing you will at least have the chance to get to the goal. He glanced up at Neji. Your student was wise, Guy, if not victorious. I think I'll follow his example. Ah, the spirit of youth. Guy cried. I know you will be successful. Yosh. Keisuke. Go. Smiling, the blind man turned back to his opponent, and began the alterations that would turn the tide of the battle. Ooh. From his perch in a young black walnut tree, Naruto watched Kiba and Hinata walk to a new clearing, the old one still suffering from the thorough soaking that Naruto had inflicted upon it. The fresh clearing was smaller, but mercifully dry. Shino walked with them, settling beneath the tree that Naruto was hanging from. Naruto called a word of encouragement to Hinata, with pleasing results. Kiba yelled up to him in feigned anger and real annoyance, to which Naruto smiled evilly. Hinata, whose bee had climbed up into her face, faced him and responded affirmatively, swearing to give her all. Despite himself, Naruto felt that unfamiliar, pleasant feeling that he'd been getting around Hinata since his return. It's good that she's so self-confident now, he told himself. In his mind he was convinced that he was enjoying seeing the once self-underestimating girl grow into a self-assured woman while still remaining a good person. While this was a true fact, it was only part of the source of the feeling. His body had other ideas, ones that became more pronounced as the match began. It was a warm day. Hinata had removed her jacket. Naruto, being a still developing but fully functional young man, reacted accordingly. He watched Kiba and Akamaru charge her, angling in at different directions. He saw Hinata dance around them both. He witnessed Kiba turn and fling a barrage of kunai knives at her, and saw her swat them from the air effortlessly with a brief S-movement, her chakra lancing out like a sword to see the projectiles down. Naruto observed Akamaru pounce on her from the rear, bore witness to Hinata's light somersault out of harm's way and her subtle retaliation. Her movements were graceful, elegant, precise, and subtle. This was no battle. This was a dance, almost like an ice show, but that Hinata needed no skates to glide across the dirt. Within minutes, Kiba and Akamaru were completely forgotten, Naruto held in thrall by the beautiful dance. This is better than that time Keisuke and Ero Sennin went into the bar together to watch those women dance around that pole, he thought wistfully. Suddenly, Naruto was struck with a realization. Jiraiya had waved money at those dances, and the dancers had smiled at him. When the dance had ended, Jiraiya had gone with one of them through a door. When, after Naruto had attempted the same feat and Keisuke had dragged him out of the bar, he asked what was going on in the room, Keisuke had explained. Jiraiya-sama waved the money to show that he enjoyed the dance, Keisuke said. That room back there is where the dance's safe is. The dancer was showing Jiraiya where to put the money so that it would be safe for her while she was working. While Naruto had not believed a word of Keisuke's explanation, recognizing the harried tone that he'd been using, he had seen the dancer smile at Ero Sennin. Remembering that, and glancing at the spectacular show the pretty girl was putting on, Naruto was seized with a sudden desire to have Hinata smile that way at him. With his eyes still glued to the dance, he reached into his jacket for his wallet. Then his eyes went wide with horror. Ah, Gama-chan is missing, he cried. Frantically, he took off his jacket, searched every pocket for some sign of his beloved frog-shaped wallet. It's gotta be on me somewhere, he panted, tossing the jacket from the tree and proceeding to his pants. Ooh, Juken. Hinata s her palm into Kiba's gut, a direct hit. It was only a practice match, of course, so the blow had very little chakra in it, but the wild man got the message. He'd taken a direct hit twice now. Had they been real Juken hits, he'd be out cold, possibly D. Kiba stepped back, fell to one knee, exhausted. Good match, Hinata, he said. Akamaru bounded forward to his master's side, woofing his agreement. Arigato, Kiba-kun. You, too. Hinata acknowledged the nod from Shino, then looked around for her team's guest. Concern spread to her heart as she realized that he wasn't nearby, and he wasn't in the tree he'd started in. Wah, where did Naruto-kun go? Could he have run away, afraid to tell her what he thought of her performance? Was it possible that he found it unappealing, boring, not worth his time? She hung her head, and her eyes fell to the ground at her feet. They came to rest on an orange and black jacket. Immediately, her mood perked up. Naruto had not left. He wouldn't forget his jacket or his pants. She had now spotted the blonde ninja's sub-belt garb, lying 10 yards or so away and off to the left. Now she was getting a bit unnerved. He's somewhere. She turned a radical shade of red, imagining the boy strolling through the woods without any clothes. Then, a frustrated cry from above made her look up. Right into the folds of a black t-shirt, which fluttered down onto her head. Darkness enveloped her as the shirt's owner jumped from the tree he'd been searching, landing before her and her teammates. "I've lost him. I've lost Gamma-chan," he proclaimed. For about 10 seconds, nobody said anything. Then, Naruto spoke again. Hinata, what's my shirt doing on your head?" Hinata debated whether or not she should remove the shirt. An inner battle raged between two sides of her subconscious. She could take it off of her head and spare herself some embarrassment. She must have looked rather ridiculous at the moment. On the other hand, though, taking it off and handing it back to him involved her seeing Naruto without his shirt and without his pants. Was she ready for that yet? Plus, there was the small matter of her never having had her face pressed into his shirt. At that point, Kiba made a sharp whistle and said, "Whoa, somebody's been working out." Naruto caught her. "What's the matter, Hinata? Is there something on me?" He turned to reach around his back, exposing his strong back. No, nothing there." He looked at her in a confused, questioning way, wondering what the staring had been about. Hinata grew nervous watching his blue eyes search hers. Would he figure it out now? If so, was she prepared to answer for it? Finally, the blonde boy gave up, shrugged, and pulled his shirt back on, much to Hinata's relief. Not many things could reduce her to the verge of hysteria anymore, but this happy little situation was a rare and special occasion. The heavy crimson in her face began to fade away as Naruto turned to pick up his jacket. Once fully dressed, Naruto began muttering something unintelligible. Hinata thought she caught the words, "ero senin," wallet, money, and dancing, but decided not to think much of it. Her real focus was on another set of words. Now, how to go about getting him to say them. Kiba, again, came to the rescue. "So, Naruto," he said, putting an arm around his old friend's shoulder, "what did you think of that little match?" Naruto gave a nervous smile. Well, to tell the truth. This was it. He was going to tell Kiba, really, but she would hear it too, so what did it matter? How he liked her display. Among the reasons she'd had to work so hard these past 3 years, this one moment was one of the most important. This was the man whose words had helped her to become the success she was today. His opinion meant the world to her, and he could propel her confidence through the sky or shoot it down in flames with a single remark. "I really didn't see most of it. I lost my wallet, see, and I've been running around looking for it so." The pilot of HMA. Hinata's mental airship, confidence struggled to maintain altitude through the grey clouds. The co-pilot, reading the meters, was calling out, "I can't get a reading at all, Captain. All we can see in these clouds is the color grey." Suddenly, the engine sputtered, and the propellers ground to a halt. "Damn it," growled the captain. "We need more information now, son." HMA. Confidence hung suspended for a moment, then began to slowly sink. Hey, but you know what?" Naruto said. "Those first few minutes were awesome. Hinata's moving this way, that way, nothing touching her, then bam. Direct shot on dog breath's guts. Oh. Sorry Kiba, you were alright, too." Kiba didn't really look that hurt. He'd been trying to get Naruto to talk about this, after all. "But anyway, that was really amazing, Hinata. You moved like you were gliding over some kinda cloud, or something." The clouds parted around the HMA. Confidence, revealing the sun. Its heat burned away the grey and kickstarted the engine. The propellers whirred to life once again. The captain smiled. "Take her up, number 2. High as she'll go." Hinata's smile and blush illuminated her face more brightly than the sun. Naruto, looking at her, forgot about everything else. Screw waving money around. Compliments do the job just fine. Better than fine, he added. "Arigato, Naruto-kun." Ooh. Keisuke's face screwed up in concentration. Neji only wondered for a moment what he could be doing before dropping from his perch to attempt to stop him. Whatever it was, it sure did seem to require much focus, and techniques like that tended to be either highly specialized or highly dangerous. Neji was betting on the latter. Ready for this, Keisuke flung a kunai at the branch that Neji would land on in mere seconds. Not wasting his breath on a battle cry, he formed the seal that would detonate the chakra, blowing the branch out from underneath Neji, who was forced to leap backwards to avoid the wooden shrapnel. Unfortunately, there were no branches to cling to in that direction, so Neji had to wait for himself to hit the ground before he could run back up to Keisuke. That would take too much time. The Hyuga Junin would not be able to stop the blind man. Grim-faced, Neji watched Keisuke perform his change. What he saw astonished him. 32 of the ghostly arms had bent over double, each reaching over to one of its neighbors. Neji fought to keep himself from gaping in awe as these neighbors were ripped from their tenketsus entirely and spun around the arms that had freed them, being absorbed by them. Keisuke's chakra coursed through both sets of 32 with an alarming intensity, fusing them together. To Neji's eyes, the glow of chakra was blinding. Metamorphosis complete, Keisuke said. Behold, Sanjuni Reod. 32 ghostly arms. Sanjuni Reod. Neji murmured, I see. By detaching an arm and fusing it together with another, you strengthen each individual arm. The chakra capacity is more than doubled, and the arms are even semi-solid. He pondered a little bit. I suppose that this would make your Kokuin seals more effective. Keisuke smiled wide. Not only that, but the doubled strength of the individual arms enables them to resist that troublesome reflexive impulse that comes from having their tenketsu struck. The chakra capacity of each new super arm is 2.5 times that of a normal one, and, as you say, the power of my Kokuin and trap seals is magnified by a similar factor. Amazing, Keisuke-san, Neji said. Whatever the outcome of this battle, I have truly enjoyed seeing this. I've enjoyed it likewise, Keisuke said. Although, the Sanjuni Reod is far from flawless, he thought to himself. It's visible to normal human eyes, and it leaves me with less to feel around with. And over time, the abnormal amount of chakra pulsing through the arms will slowly corrode them. At my current level, I can only make it last about 5 minutes. After that, all the arms waste away, and they won't grow back until tomorrow. Grimacing at the prospect of being without his feelers for a whole day, Keisuke set himself to do what must be done. His kunai he raised high into the air, as if challenging the sky. Neji watched and waited. That's a lot of power he's channeling. I wouldn't be surprised if he really feels drained after this. He must be planning a last-ditch, high-power offensive, to finish the fight as quickly as possible. I wonder what it is. He saw the bright super arms twist and writhe, shining with power, into a formation on Keisuke's skin. Lightning again. When the seal finished, Keisuke brought the hand holding the kunai down hard and fast. See guys bonds. What? Neji thought. Surely his old instructor couldn't have impacted Keisuke so much that he was carrying him into battle now, so what could he be doing? Oh. No. The realization came too late. Keisuke had grabbed Guy by the waist. Chosoku no Kokuin. Carved seal of progression. Dashing, running, sprinting, whatever word you could use for it, it wasn't enough. Keisuke's speed-enhancing seal, multiplied by 2.5, resulted in a torso and a head with blurred-out legs cruising for the gate. He reached it in 6 seconds. Neji, who hadn't had quite the equivalent of Rock Lee's grueling speed training, arrived 12 seconds after that. Crafty as a Junin should be, Neji mused. When all of them stood outside of the enclosure together, Keisuke dropped Guy unceremoniously to the ground, which Guy approved, seeing as it was a dynamic climax. Neji did not look at Guy, however. He looked straight at Keisuke in wonder. You outthought me, he said. I felt for certain that you would want to finish that battle, but you did as an elite shinobi would, achieving the objective with as little hesitation as possible. I acknowledge my failure. Don't call it your failure, Keisuke replied, but rather think of it as my victory, Neji-san. And yours as well, if you buy into my dream. Neji recalled him talking about his dream earlier. Would you explain this dream of yours for me, Keisuke-san? It could take a while to tell you the whole story. We'll send Guy-sensei to the medical unit for analysis, and I'll take that map you've got there, Neji said. He motioned for an attendant to carry Guy away, and extended his hand for the paper. Is that beyond it? Never mind. Turn off your road and sit down. You can tell me the story while we wait for your score. Keisuke grimaced. Unfortunately, I can't turn it off, Neji-san, or even reduce it. The change is irreversible. Irreversible? Neji asked, curious. You aren't like this permanently, are you? Oh, no. You'll see them fade out completely in about 2 minutes. They'll have corroded into nothing, and I'll be totally blind until they regrow overnight. I see, said Neji. So like most power in the world, this one does not come without sacrifices. Indeed, Keisuke said. But now, I have a story to tell. I'll tell you what I told Haruka and Sakura-san. It took a while to tell, but by the end of it, Keisuke had found himself another ally in his life's quest. And when it was finished, the attendant returned with Keisuke's score. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.